It was Abraham Lincoln who said the best way to destroy your enemy is to make him your friend. Let's get into this. Welcome to the Armed Citizen channel, where you and I will discuss the finer and mostly undiscussed points of being an armed citizen. If you find my content valuable to you, please like, share, and subscribe, and maybe even drop a few coins in my tip jar to feed my ammo habit. Let's get on with it. All right, everybody. Today we're going to talk about how to talk with anti-gun people. So there's several things that I have to kind of sort of set up the table so we have the full context that is necessary to know how to go after this. You just don't go off half-cocked. So the first thing is know who you're talking to, and when I mean this, I mean by what group they belong to. And the way I see anti-gunners, there are three groups. Now you got to remember, anti-gunners is not anti-gun. They are anti-civilian ownership of guns. They're perfectly fine with the police having guns and the military having guns. They're just not comfortable with the regular citizen owning guns. So the first of this group, and the most approachable, is going to be what I call the know-nothings. The know-nothings literally know nothing about guns. They have no personal experience. They've never shot a gun before. They've never even held a gun before. The closest they might have been to a real gun has been on the hip of a police officer or an armed security guard. So all they know is what the talking heads on TV and the internet say, and they all say guns are bad. So they're going off, they have no contrasting point of view, and of course it's part of our human nature to fear what we do not know. So they are the most approachable. The second group is what I call the bad experience people, and these are people who have asked, hey, can you take me shooting? The bad news is they asked Bubba to take them shooting. So Bubba takes them out in the middle of the forest where, no one else can get hit, and hands them a firearm too big for them. In other words, instead of starting out with like a .22 rifle or a .22 pistol that has no appreciable recoil, they hand them a 12-gauge shotgun with magnum loads. They don't tell them how to stand. They don't give them hearing protection. They don't tell them what to expect as far as recoil and noise and all that. So when they pull the trigger, there's this loud noise. The gun jumps out of their hands, or they drop it in shock, and they're terrified. And then they look over at their quote-unquote friends, who are not only videotaping them, they're laughing at the person. Now, that's a pretty negative experience. I personally would never put anybody through such an experience, and I hope you never would either. And if you've been through an experience like that, it's perfectly understandable that you don't want guns in the hand of civilians because you think everyone is going to be a Bubba. I got good news for you. We're not. So that's the first two groups. The third one, you're probably not going to convince because they are the hardcore leftist, agenda-driven, totalitarian kind of people that, want control in a subject, and they want a populace that are subjects, not citizens. So the best way that they turn citizens into subjects is to disarm them. So now there is a fourth group that you should always have in your mind. No matter what group you're talking to, there is always going to be the third person. And who is the third person? Well, you are the first person, and the anti-gun person you're talking with is going to be the second person, and the third person is going to be anybody around you who is going to hear this conversation. On social media, you'll have a lot of third people or third persons because you're talking on Facebook or Twitter or X or whatever, and you're going to get into a discussion, and there's going to be hundreds or thousands of people that are going to pass by that thread and read it. Now, the thing that you want to do and what you will have the best chance of doing is winning this third person over to your side, because they're probably going to be neutral on the subject. They're not going to be for it. They're not going to be against it. So they're going to listen to you and them in this exchange and make up their own mind from that. So there we go. Now, the next point, number 2, that I want to talk about is how we're going to communicate. And I sum that up in 3 words: at, to, and with. When you talk at somebody, it is from a place of extreme anger and frustration, and you are just engaged in a cathartic release all over this person. I can't use the word. I'm pretty sure YouTube would not like it, but I want you to think about a Japanese word that means adult or spicy adult facial or spicy content facial. Okay, that's the word. You're doing one of those all over this person. You don't care if they even hear you. You're just releasing everything in that cathartic moment to get it off your chest. We don't ever want to be there, because that's where they generally are. The other side of this conversation is going to be talking at us. You can also call it talking past you, because, like I said, you're really not involved at all with the conversation. The second way of talking with a person is talking to them. Now, this can be considered, in a rough sense, a two-way conversation, but it's extremely limited on the other person. You're still speaking from a place of anger and frustration, because you got a boss at work who just has a real slacker of an employee, and what are they going to do? They're going to give them a good talking to. So in a to conversation, the responses are pretty much from the second person going to be limited to yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, I'm sorry, and other short and interspersed phrases like that. And the second person can quickly get angry and frustrated as well, and then it actually upgrades to a two-way at conversation where everyone's shouting and no one's listening. Where we want to be is talking with a person. And if you noticed, I've used the word with every time in this video, because when you're talking with someone, that is an equal exchange of information and communication. Stephen Covey said it best when he said, what did he say? He said, listen with the intent to understand, not the intent to respond. right? You wanna listen to what they're saying, bring it into your mind and hear what they're saying. From there, once you've taken that in and ruminated on that for a moment or two, then you can give it back to them. That's called a restatement. And you use your own words to say what they just told you, and that shows the other person that you've actually listened to them. So we can have an open and equal conversation that goes back and forth. Now, it might end up as you agree to disagree, but that's certainly better than an at or to conversation. The third thing is a book that I had to read about 20 years ago, and it's called Motivational Interviewing. And this book, I highly suggest you wrap your head in duct tape before you read it. And what I mean by that, I don't mean actually wrap your head in duct tape. What I mean is your head is going to explode. There is so much information in this that you feel like your head's going to explode. So you want to wrap your head in metaphorical duct tape so when it explodes, you'll be able to find all the pieces. Okay? And it's a manual used by therapists. The best therapist does not give you, they listen to what your problems are. And the best therapist does not give you advice. They help you come to what the best advice for you is from you. And that's done by asking clarification, clarifying, and leading questions. So it uses what's called the Prochaska di Clementi states of change model. Man, that thing is still haunting me. So let me give you an example. Someone's going to say, I don't like people having guns because 57,000 people die every year from gun violence. And you say, oh, okay, I'll take your number. Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, did you know that over half of that, like 55, 60, 70% are actually people who self-delete? Oh, you didn't, did you? No, that makes that gun violence number a lot smaller, doesn't it? Because, yes, a lot of people used firearms to delete themselves, but if they didn't have firearms, don't you think that most of them would have found another way? Yes, some would have been saved, but probably not a lot. A person who is determined to delete themselves will find a way no matter what. So you're not going to drastically drop the number of people who self-delete in a given year just because they have no guns. So, yeah, 57,000 sounds pretty bad, but and 20,000, which is when you take out the self-deletions, that sounds pretty bad, but that's not as bad, right? Okay, so that's the kind of things you want to do. If they say 10 children die by gunfire every day, ask them, what do you consider a child? That gets them thinking, right? What do you consider a child? Most people consider a child to be anywhere from birth to where puberty starts. So 0 to 11, 12 years old. Once puberty hits, they become an adolescent, a teenager. And if you've raised kids, you know that children and adolescents are, shall we say, two different animals. They are totally different emotionally, physically, um, cognitively. So you can't really put them in the same basket together. And then you can say, well, did you know in order to get to that 10 a day, they also had to include 18 and 19-year-olds, which are, I don't know about you, but I consider someone who's 18 or older to be an adult. So is an 18 or 19-year-old adult a child? See, you're asking leading questions, getting them to think. And then after they've ruminated on that for a couple of minutes, then you say, well, I've looked at the data and I've pulled it apart and checked it out, and actually 7 of those 10 children, in other words 70%, are adolescents, and the primary cause, when you don't consider uh, self-deletion, because we've already ruled those out, is basically gang or drug related. So they are adolescents shooting each other over turf or power or whatever. I wouldn't call those children. So is 3 children? I to me, I would like to see 0 children a day die by gunfire. I want to see 0 children die of childhood cancer, or getting hit by a car in traffic. But I know it's not going to happen. I'm realistic on this subject that those numbers will never be 0. So is it a little more acceptable to know that actually a very small number of children die by gunfire? And believe me, I understand that each is a tragedy to at least one family. However, there's lots of reasons why we lose children, and there's there's no good answer to that. But you get them thinking about it, so it kind of opens them up. Now, you're not going to convert a know nothing or a bad experience in one conversation or 10 conversations or 15 conversations. You might start getting them to taste that red pill about the 15th or 20th time you've gone over this with them. So if you are persistent and gentle and consistent, you can start to win them over to your side. One of the best ways, hey, show them how fun guns are, right? Take them shooting, take them down to the range, put a 22 rifle in their hands and let them shoot their heart out. Well, not their heart, but just let them shoot till they don't want to shoot anymore, and then ask them, hey, was that fun? So when you start winning them over, this is a big thing. You need to let them save face. In my experience, these kind of people on that side of the aisle have taken their particular position, in this case being against the civilian ownership of guns, and actually turned it into an internal organ that they must have to survive. So, me asking you, would you be okay with me giving you a spoon and you digging out your liver? That's about how bad it is to get someone on the left to swallow that red pill and admit that they really were misinformed and lied to about it, and you have opened their eyes. So you let them save face. You don't say, well, duh, I've been telling you this for 15 years. So Because when you do that, when you don't let them save face, when you are not gracious with them actually coming over to your side of the discussion, not only are they going to go back to their original position, they're going to go even farther and they're going to dig their heels in. And if you can do it at all, it's going to be 10 times worse than the last fight you had with them to drag them to your side of the conversation. So, welcome them. Give them the prodigal son treatment, you know? It's like they need to be welcomed and felt appreciated, so they stay in your side of the conversation. Always. Well, be gracious. Let people save face, even if they're being stupid. If they admit that they're being stupid, let them save face. You will destroy a lot more enemies by making them your friends that way. Y'all have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you for watching the entire video. If what I discussed here was valuable to you, I ask that you like, share, and subscribe, and maybe drop a few coins in my tip jar to keep me in ammo. Thank you.